Good morning, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you might be doing. We wish to welcome you to the Silverlight Show. The Silverlight shines to illuminate that which lies hidden in darkness. For those of you tuning in today, we welcome you in. We're actually talking about lumber today, which might not sound like a very sexy and interesting topic, but trust me, it is. The problem was I needed to come up with a background. So I found a balloon. At first, it was kind of a desperate choice. Just, I have this old balloon lying around, I'll put it there to break up the background. And then I realized how appropriate it is. During the past year and a bit, during the pandemic, a lot of people started trying to catch up on their home renovations. Things they've been letting go for years. A couple walls here need to be painted, build a new fence, whatever it is. As a matter of fact, if I had done this show a week ago, I had a ton of lumber lying around, but I just made it into a new fence. Believe it or not, you're going to the store and completely unable to find lumber anywhere, and lumber mills, as announced by the British Columbia Forestry Administration through the Financial Post, lumber mills can't give their lumber away. They're dropping prices left, right, and center, saying the demand is no longer there. Imagine that. You're going to Home Depot, grabbing plywood and scraps, whatever you can, for a ridiculously overinflated price, and the lumber mills can't give their stuff away. It's costing them about $525 per square, I don't know what per cord, and they're only getting $450 in return. Those are US funds, by the way. This might surprise you. You probably would have thought lumberjacks and all the people in the sawmill were doing pretty good, and they were. Now the question is, the bubble has been inflated. How long is it going to take for the pin to come in? The answer is actually quite simple. Never. The sawmills are taking a beating. It's true. They're not lying to us. The demand has dropped. As the pandemic, there we go, ironically, it has dropped. But as the pandemic is sort of winding up, we still are going through a fourth wave, and possibly there's rumors of a fifth one, rumors of pestilence on top of other pestilence, to paraphrase the Bible. But because of that, commodities have been ridiculous. Remember the big toilet paper scare? Oh no, we can't get toilet paper. We have to buy every single roll we can for itself. And it all worked out in the end. Admittedly, if you're like me and you've been listening to the show, you always know I have a little bit extra put away for a rainy day. So I was able to weather that first month or so where things were impossible, and the same is true with lumber. This would be a lovely point for me to do some renovations, but honestly, I don't need lumber at the present time. Now, there's a lot of people that do require lumber. Handymen who are going around making repairs to places. They're making a killing off this now the restrictions have been lifted, but they know that time is money. And they've lost months, if not years, of revenue. I'm sure a few of them were going around despite the quarantines and making some money behind the scene, but as long as they were taking reasonable precautions, I don't really have an issue with that. The real point of this is, while the sawmills, where the lumber comes from, were busy expanding and hiring more people, and all of a sudden find themselves with nothing to do, in a best case scenario, this will take a year or two to filter down to you. And this is because it's a long supply chain from cutting a tree to getting some lumber in your house. First of all, they have to go to some sort of remote wilderness region that has been government approved. They have to get permission to cut those trees down by applying for a permit, all that sort of thing. And then they have to go cut it, load it onto trucks, and move it back to a sawmill. The sawmill does all the important stuff, like sawing it, taking the bark off, remanufacturing that into plywood, whatever they're going to do with it. The sawmill is really more than our typical image of some guys with a table saw breaking it up. No, no. Modern day sawmills are quite technologically complex. They're dealing with epoxies, they're dealing with laminates, they're dealing with all sorts of crazy stuff. And after it's made that first long journey, which of course is by truck, then it's going to wind up on its next journey. And that is getting out to a distribution warehouse. That also adds money onto the equation. Not only do you have to pay the sawmill, you have to pay somebody to put it all together and say, okay, in Kamloops, BC, they need 100,000 sheets of plywood. In Toronto, Ontario, they need 15,000 2x4s and 40,000 4x4s by tomorrow, and the rest needs to be shipped by next week. And then we talk about the shipping. Something local can all move on a truck, flatbed, load it up, let it go. But otherwise, believe it or not, our infrastructure is still heavily dependent on trains. And these trains, the lines for them were set down over a century ago. They've been repairing them slowly, but at the same token, there's a reason why in the 1950s and 1960s, passenger trains were going at 100 miles an hour, and now they're going at 60. Or if you speak in Canadian terms, they're going at 60 kilometers an hour, and now they're going at 40. Because those old rails were designed for a different category of trains. And nobody wants to spend the money that is very much needed to outfit the rails properly to take modern trains. We still send massive loads on them. Lumber's pretty heavy, paper's pretty heavy, and we still put that on the train rails. I can't say that for some reason. And we ship it coast to coast from the North Sea or straight down to the Straits of Mexico. The fact is, lumber has a huge supply chain, and the longer a supply chain goes, the more hidden expenses are involved in the middle. And that's why the people at the top are more than willing to pocket a little bit. I'm going to pick on Irving Incorporated. I'm picking on them in particular because they are a huge national company. They actually control all those areas of distribution. They control sawmills that are owned by Irving. They have trucks dedicated to them through Midland Transport and a couple other branches. And believe me, I've worked for them. They are very efficient at what they do. So if they own that, they have the sawmills, they have dedicated trains just for their equipment, and they own the trucks that deliver it. That just means they need to break it to Home Depot. But Irving, as a monolithic structure, is not stupid. They've been hiking their prices lately, and even though they're going to get more supply out of it now, they're not going to be bringing their prices back anytime soon. They're going to wait till all the warehouses are full, back to overflowing again, and people won't be able to move in those warehouses. And then maybe they might have a little bit of a sale. And by a little bit, I mean literally the minimum possible to get their warehouse levels back. That won't be for another 5 to 6 months, because as fast as these sawmills are going, as fast as these warehouses are going, people are still ordering stuff. There's a perceived shortage. And also, companies like money. Once you've started charging $200 instead of $100 for something, once you've inflated it, it's awfully hard to convince yourself to bring that money back down. Whether you're making more money or you're just keeping your expenses, it's called price memory. People are used to things being a certain price, and then they look around and say, oh, it's this price now, and they feel it. Happens every time that Coca-Cola goes on sale, or Pepsi, or any of the other big soft drinks. People are like, oh, I'm only paying $10 for a case. Well, I remember back when you could get a case for $3. My price memory is very different. Then again, I don't drink soda. But lumber is going to be the same thing. Through this pandemic, they have artificially set our price memory to a higher point. Before the pandemic, lumber was already expensive. I've been buying, oh my God, well, I can't remember the name of it, drywall and stuff like that. I have a few minor fixings to do around the house. And it's not cheap. I get in a few here and there when I can afford it, and then I put it together on my various projects. But I remember my father, who was a major handyman, he would order a truckload of the stuff, and it would be delivered, and everybody would, well, not everybody would be happy, but it was, if he needed more, he would just order it. And now he's saying, my goodness, I can't believe how much they're charging for lumber. And the Silverlight show, as Silverlight, I agree with them. Just those little bits of drywall, I'm not redoing the house as much as I would like to redo it in drywall. It's just simply too expensive. That bubble's not coming back. Remember a while ago, and I bring this up every little bit, you can remember when celery and bacon, you were buying 2 for $5, 3 for $5. It wasn't high quality celery, it wasn't organic or anything like that, but you weren't spending that much money. And now you're not getting either one for less than $5, even the cheapest stuff. Your price memory has been altered. Now, part of this is due to inflation. As much as the government talks about reducing inflation, the fact is they don't really control it besides setting the prime rate. It's not like in the 1950s in the Soviet Union where they would say you're selling 100,000 loaves of bread for 30 cents a piece and that's the end of the story. We still do have a free market over here. And the free market does collude. There's not a lot of collusion charges, but I can tell you, those owners go together, they meet up at golf courses, they meet at the same social events, and they hang out around the same politicians. How do I know this? I'm a former campaign manager. This is why I have some insights into the political spectrum. And having worked in logistics so long, it gives me an excellent understanding of the economics. It's one of the great tricks that they do. That's, how do I describe this? They kind of sit together, and it's not a formal agreement. They never say anything, but they're going to say, hey, John, I'm making a killing on this contract, but I hear that at the end of the month, they're going to be looking for other bids. We're friends. We go golfing together once a month. Why don't I give you the details? And that way we can make sure between the two of us that we handle all their business and nobody else gets involved. And John says, that's a great idea. And everybody has that little circle of friends. Theoretically, they compete, but there's unofficial alliances. There's people they don't compete with because either they're not interested in the same market or they're interested in cornering the market and they combine their resources. Lumber is going through the exact same thing. The people that control lumber now have all of it that they want. They flooded the system. If it was a true free market, then lumber prices would be dropping. Gold prices would be dropping. Diamond prices would be dropping. But none of those prices are dropping. Even though the supply goes up every single day on every single one of them, there's more and more of it. At least in lumber for temporarily. Lumber gets used. Gold and diamonds are pretty much forever. Diamonds are not even that rare, neither is gold. But we're told they're special. And lumber for the past year has been special, so people are treating it differently. My next door neighbor, great guy, he got in a whole bunch of lumber. And you know what? He was hiding that stuff. Just because he was worried somebody would steal it. Lumber became a commodity people were going to steal. Not gold, not jewelry, lumber. We've always had a problem with copper theft. Copper is valuable, no question about it. But I mean, lumber, trees, that's phenomenal. I mean, not something that anybody would have believed me a year or two ago. They would have believed me, oh yeah, forest fires, all this sort of stuff, which is going to be their next excuse. The forest fires that come every year are going to come again. And they're going to come again next year. And that's going to be the excuse that the big businesses tell you that is the reason that the prices are still up. Even though they're getting lumber in cheaper, the only people that profit are the middle people. The guys in the silver towers, the ivory castles, all that sort of thing, that sit back and count their money while they're smoking cigars and drinking dry martinis. They're the ones that profit. We sit back. Farmers don't make a lot of money. even though we're paying $2-3 for a stalk of celery, the farmer's getting maybe 50 cents. Maybe. Believe me, I've been to a couple farmsteads. Really nice people. But they have literally nothing. They have tons of assets. They have all, like, in combines and harvesters and paid labor, they've got assets. They just have no available cash. So they're, on paper, they're not poor, but in practice, they are poor. And they're trying to do the same with the sawmills. Now that they convinced them all to expand because there was a balloon, an inflated market, now they're trying to pull back. You know why? Because it's going to give them more control. They're going to start to be able to pressure the government. Hey, I have all these employees. I need to keep them going. Will you let me cut down more trees? And the government is going to eventually cave in. Because unfortunately, the government does listen to the big corporations when it comes to jobs. Despite the fact that big corporations blackmail the government, they always say, oh, I pay this many people's salary, so you give me some discounted electricity, discounted sewer lines, discount this, make my taxes lower than anybody else's. Big business really does not have a problem. But just like whenever you see somebody, one of these sports teams wants a new stadium built and they want all the concessions, all the thing, and the government gives into it, it's the same with every other industry, every big industry out there. Whether it be Coca-Cola, Pepsi, the Irvings, whoever it is that can say, I employ X amount of people, which brings in X amount of dollars to your city, so I need this, the government's going to cave. What we need is a government that's not going to cave anymore. A government's going to say, we don't care. You can leave, you can abandon all this infrastructure, and you can go move your jobs to wherever, and we're going to turn around and say, we will no longer buy your product. And that's the only way it's going to work. Now, it's going to be hard to do that, especially, again, I'm picking on Irving, because Irving is 100% Canadian. It's hard to say no to them. But somebody like Walmart, who's getting in their supplies from all over the place, it should be very easy to say, no, we're no longer accepting United States fabricated wood. And the United States, Canada have to sit down. We have a free trade agreement. Fortunately, it doesn't include Mexico at the moment, because I never understood why Mexico was included. We have different cultures. We have our legal systems don't line up. Can the United States mostly line up? When you put Mexico in that mix, there is a whole different level. Maybe that's something I'll get into eventually, is how the free trade agreement was never free. It wasn't about trade. It was just about sucking as much money out of the people as possible. Remember when I was talking about China the other day and how they're redistributing their wealth? Yeah, we got redistributed. And right now, the lumber industry is getting redistributed. It's not by the government necessarily. The government is complicit in it. But private industry is absolutely involved in it. If you listen to nothing else I say, remember this. Suppliers don't make a ton of money. Consumers don't make a ton of money. It's the people in between that make the money. Whether it's transportation companies, and I can tell you, working for logistics as long as I have, transportation companies mostly do pretty okay. There are some that go under, and there's all sorts of crazy things that happen to them. But mostly they do okay because of the way that they anticipate their costs. And that's the key to any company. How do you anticipate your costs? That's one of the reasons I like watching Gordon Ramsay and Robert Irvine go into a restaurant, is they break down the costs. Basically, whatever you charge the customer, remember, 1/3 of it has to pay your rent, your utilities, your basic. 1/3 of it has to pay your staff. The remaining third has to be your profit. And you have to be able to reinvest that profit back into the business. Gordon Ramsay's gotten away from that because, unfortunately, he's a big-time celebrity. Robert Irvine is still doing it, and it's an important lesson. But every company, every board of directors out there will take whatever opportunity they can to increase their profit, whether it's cutting staff, cutting costs, or whatever they can do. And right now, With lumber going down, Home Depot's costs are going down. It's better for them. Irving's cost is going down. It's better for them. The sawmill's costs are going down, but the prices that they're getting for the lumber they produce is also going down. If they're feeling the pinch, if they shut down, then we wind up with another lumber crunch. It's a wonderful little cycle. It's boom, bust, rinse and repeat. The market calls it pump and dump, and realistically, lumber is one of those things that we're always going to need. Until we become a true spacefaring civilization and we're getting raw materials from asteroids, we need lumber. Because it's the cheapest thing to build houses. It's the cheapest thing to build a lot of things. It's relatively easy to grow. Plant some seedlings, and you wait 20, 30 years, instant lumber. I don't know how long lumber trees take to mature, so I'm going to say 20, 30, might even be 40, but it's something that can be done renewably, and it can be economically sustainable. But right now, with the money that's being taken out of the system, it's not economically sustainable at all. It's a pump and dump scheme, just like a lot of other things. Just like food, as I detailed briefly in this episode. So, remember, over the next couple months, watch your lumber prices. They won't come down right away, and I'm saying they're not going to come down at all, because the big fat cats, the multinational globalist organizations, they want their pound of flesh, and they're going to get it now. And that, unfortunately, is the state of economics for lumber. Not the sexiest topic, but one that's important to understand. Keep watching over the next little bit to see what happens to lumber prices. Are they going down? Are they staying the same? They're probably staying the same or going up. We wish to thank you for listening to the Silverlight Show. If you enjoyed what you were hearing, please hit that like button, subscribe, and, we're always welcome for comments. You can leave a comment below, Silverlight Live on Twitter, and after that, we hope you all have a fantastic day.